Good morning everyone, Tater here, and welcome to Tater Games. Today you may notice something a little bit different. That's right. Get over it, the beard has disappeared, but it will rejoin us in a month or so, so look forward to that. So I'm very sorry to leave everyone in the dark. I've actually been working on a few things myself. I've been working on an album for music and stuff like that, and so that should be coming out fairly shortly. And also I've also been working on an IO game in the background. There just hasn't been enough time for this channel, but we're going to continue this channel because I kind of reached that mid-development hell that you kind of get when you're making a game, and so I thought today I'd talk about stress. As you can probably tell, I don't have enough time to make videos every single day, so what I've learned from today, which is I have reached this thing called mid-development hell, according to 2Clicks Philip, who is a really good YouTuber, go check him out. So he made a video called Mid-Development Hell, and it couldn't have helped me more. I kind of understand what I'm doing now and stuff like that. The IO game, I've reached a point where all the changes I'm making aren't really fatal, so everything I'm doing doesn't really get seen by the audience that is eventually going to play it, and because of this, it's all like back-end stuff and stuff, but because of this, I actually undergoing this thing called stress. Now we all know what stress is, but how do you cope with it in a situation where you're developing something and it's actually not progressing as fast as you want it to, or as fast as it initially was going? And pretty much the answer to every single question that you can get about how do you deal with the stress, there's no equation, there's no nothing like that. Unfortunately, programmers, naturally, we just like equations. There's none of that stuff. The only answer is to just push through it. And so I thought I'd make a little video kind of describing how I've been pushing through it. And that is a lot of alcohol. I mean, a lot of hard work, dedication, motivation, all that type of stuff, and really sticking to the project. So I may actually put a few screenshots on the screen for you right now of what the game actually looks like currently. It's really basic, and it's pretty much a rip-off of Nazi zombies, or zombies as they like to call it, from Call of Duty, Black Ops, or you know, all the other Call of Duty games that actually had zombies in it. I think it was all Treyarch. But I digress. The way that I kind of coped with the fact that I've reached this point, and it's kind of like you got to sit through a lot of programming that really doesn't affect the game majorly, but it's necessary for the completion and to really smooth things out. And this is something that you guys should really be focusing on, is smoothing things out. You see, polish is a really big thing, and I'm getting to this point where I need to do all these little nooks and crannies and stuff like that. You have to fill in all these gaps, and one of the more major thing was the bullet kind of effect. So in the game you actually shoot zombies, and it's one of the key components to the actual game being sort of complete and stuff like that. And so I noticed that whilst I was making the bullet, of course there's so much more detail. You know, you can't just make a bullet go from A to B. Now that's fairly simple, but when you're networking a game, it's a lot more difficult to try and get it. And I've made like 3 or 4 different variations of this whole bullet effect, and it's going nowhere. A good example is in an FPS. If you are going to shoot somebody, do you actually register the shooting or the damage part on their computer, your computer, or the server? Right now, obviously, a few people say the server, but because everything's being hosted on the server, there's actually a delay in both parties. If it's only happening on one, then there's only a delay in one party, so you got to kind of, which one is actually more important? So I've actually tried all 3, testing it by myself, and of course one with a friend who's helping me out a little bit. And the great thing about it is that you kind of get different perspectives from each. If you shoot and the other guy's taking the damage, then that means your bullet damage actually isn't visible until the other guy takes the damage, which means that the person who is shooting is not actually getting that feedback that they need, that they've actually shot somebody. What on planet Earth 2 do we do in this situation? Well, we could either, you know, switch it around and make the host actually deal the damage and carry the damage for that other player. But at the same time, when the bullet spawns and actually hits the player, there's going to be delay before he actually takes the damage, so the person getting damaged is not in sync with everyone else. Hopefully right now you see my conundrum. Of course, this could all be handled by the server. Now the problem with that is then you need to run a database, of course, and the stuff like that's actually quite easy to figure out. It's not too hard to get that sort of sorted, but then there's delays in both. Now we get into even worse territory. Because there is delays in both, then there's always going to be a delay in player 1, and there's always going to be a delay in player 2. So if you shoot player 2 from player 1's position and stuff like that, and the bullet actually hits, there's going to be a slight delay. Also for their damage, and between them actually getting the bullet hit onto them, there's also going to be a slight delay. So we could run the bullet through the server to kind of cancel out this delay, meaning that the bullet will hit in sync, but there will be a delay when you're shooting. Here we come, part 2. Because shooting is such a core mechanic in this, you can't really have that delay. So I looked into other games like PUBG and Call of Duty and all of that stuff. How do they actually handle it? Well, they actually trick the players into thinking that their computers are actually synced up together. Well, PUBG actually doesn't. PUBG runs through the server, so if you have a bad ping, you're going to be more delayed than anyone else, which is pretty fair. You know, you have good gear, you do a little bit better, which just so happens to be the whole gaming thing. This is an IO game, it has to be fair all around, and I'm spending this entire video talking about shooting. I should be talking about handling stress. Call of Duty, without a doubt, is probably one of the most perfectly networked games available. Now, a lot of people may disagree, but I believe it's perfectly networked because it actually tricks both players into thinking that they are in sync. And how do I know this? Well, I actually tested it. So we get that whole split screen going, and the way that those first-person games actually work is that when one shoots the other, it kind of determines whether or not it will kill them, and it will kill them on player 1's screen, so he knows that the other guy is going to die. Player 2 actually receives it out of sync, but everything comes at the same time. So if this guy starts shooting and then stops shooting and actually kills the player, then player 2 is going to register it as sort of they're not getting shot until they're taking damage. So the bullets actually come when they think they're supposed to take damage, and it's all synced up perfectly, but it's all inside the mind. And I do believe that that's kind of the key to making a multiplayer game, is actually tricking people into thinking a game is 100% networked, perfectly in sync, but really it's not. You see, this is actually something that you guys can take in mind, especially if you're trying to network games, and especially if you're getting into multiplayer games. It's really important that you guys actually get this kind of idea around your head. And I read an entire like PDF file that said how to make a multiplayer game, and at the very top of that file it said the best way to make a multiplayer game is actually to trick people into thinking that things are in sync. When you actually go and play my game, if you guys decide to do so, then I would be very happy, first of all, and secondly, you may notice that a lot of it is actually not networked, because I am going to teach you how to make the entire thing, and I want to make it a really big video because it's pretty cool. Making this is very cool. I've learned a lot, and hopefully you guys learn a lot from all of the mistakes I've been making. But you know, on the download, we won't talk about all the mistakes that Tater makes. This is pretty much all I wanted to say, was keep you guys updated. What have I actually learnt? And I've learnt another thing about player movement, which you guys actually might find very, very helpful, especially if you're making a top-down game. There's something really cool that involved high school mathematics, which I've never actually used before. Programming, of course, you use algebra, but you know, that may not be high school mathematics, depending on where you live. Lots of little variables, but this is the first time I've ever used trigonometry within a game to actually program a decent, really balanced kind of networking style. Did I just say networking? I didn't mean networking style. I meant like there's sort of physics in the game that may not appear that they're there, but they really are there. So yeah, that's pretty much me for today. Sorry if this was a very short video and you guys didn't actually enjoy it. It's just pretty much saying I'm still alive, I'm still happy, and all that type of stuff. And hopefully you guys are too, and I'll see you guys in the next video, which I'm not going to promise anything. I'm still working on the game, remember. When that game comes out, we'll get straight back into video scheduling. It's going to be a good time. And hopefully you guys enjoy my game and my album when it comes out. I will link you all, and if you want to get early access to any of this type of stuff, then head on over to the Discord channel. The link should be in the description below. You can also check me out on Facebook. Don't actually check me out on Facebook. I prefer if you check me out on something like Twitter, which is also in the description below. Thank you guys very much for sticking around and waiting for me. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you guys in the next video.